So we do have Nithin, our next speaker for API Summit 2021 session, which is on topic what to know before you start dating with APIs. Quite an interesting topic. Nithin is the founder of Synapse QA, which is a co-writing space of test automation professionals and software quality assurance advocates. He has nearly a decade of experience in the IT field, in the software field. He is a QA lead at FAVE and actively runs the test automation workshops, helps the other budding professionals to share their writings, knowledge sharing in the Synapse QA community. And if you want to get to know about him more, then you can visit this speaker profile link, and you can also get in touch with him on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I think we are good with his introduction. Over to you, Nitin, so that you can share your screen and get started with your session. Welcome again.
All right. Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Patel. Yeah, let me share my screen first. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are clearly.
Okay, perfect. And are you able to see my screen? I guess it's.
We are able to see your desktop. I think you are making use of Mac machine.
Give me a sec. Yeah, give me a second. Sorry, there is something wrong with my settings.
So are you making use of two screens, two monitors? Is it like that?
Yeah, I'm using split. Yeah, two
Uh-huh.
monitors. When I shared, it just disappeared. I'm not sure why. Let me reshare it again.
Yeah, yeah, please.
So sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem. Yeah, now we can see your slides. Good to go ahead. Again, we lost
I'm yet
them.
to click. Okay. Let me drag it here. Let me turn off my video. I guess it's because of this bandwidth.
Okay. The way you did it before, we were able to see your slides through the browser.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the thing which you just did
Okay, let
before
me.
stopping your video.
Okay, let me try that again then.
Yeah, please. Yeah, we can see them now.
All right, so you can see the slides now, right?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, so sorry for the inconvenience, first of all. So hi everyone, I'm Nithin and I currently live in Malaysia. I was born and raised in India where I started my career in testing. And right now I'm fortunate enough to continue my passion by leading a bunch of like-minded testers in FAVE and building a community-driven co-writing space for all the testers. So since we are already late, let's get started. So yeah, this is my LinkedIn handle and Twitter handle is already there. So if you feel to connect with me, just reach out over there. So let me start with a disclaimer first. You already know my topic title is what to know before you start dating with APIs. So I'm not being a love guru here. This is a sharing on how I fell in love with APIs and a quick walkthrough on my journey through API testing. So we all know that long-lasting relations depends on how we take our first moves. So first moves really matter both in relationships and in learnings. So if we are not laying a strong foundation, then we cannot build a house on top of that, right? So make sure you are taking the right move and ensure that your first move is always worth for it. So up for a date with the APIs, right? These four pointers which you see over the next to the mobile device is taken from a Netflix movie called Love Guaranteed. So I just correlated it with testing and my career journey. Okay. So the first one says scary first meetup. What it meant was when I started my career in testing, it was testing entirely was a new field for me. I was not having much experience in testing, but when I started, I was paired with a senior test engineer, and he was the one who started giving me guidance to kickstart my testing career. So one fine day, initially I was shadowing him with the testing activities. We were working together in the similar tickets or features. And then one fine day, he took a leave. So that fine day itself, I, who was working as a shadow with him, testing the UI related tickets, which was cool for me that time, suddenly was asked to test an API. So that is my first meetup with API. So I don't know anything about API. I don't know anything about testing at all. I was learning. It was a shocking experience, right? So I was asked to test an API. So it was really a challenge. On that day, I need to finish that testing of that particular API. So what I did was I went to my developer. So I had a collaboration with him, and I tried to understand what it does. I tried to understand how the system works and the technical aspects behind the API. So when I had the interaction with him, it really helped me to overcome the fear to test the API. And he also showed me how, for the first time, I was seeing Postman. So he also showed me how I could test using Postman. So then he helped me to create a couple of scripts, a test and precondition, authorization. So he was quickly going through that. That guy was super awesome expert, I would say. And he was quickly going through that. I was shocked. I don't know what all these things are, and I was shocked. So he created the scripts for me, and it really helped. I managed to close the ticket. But then, yeah, this curiosity came, right? So how this test works, how this API works, how it interacts, and that curiosity was there in my mind, and I started to dig more on the scripts which he created. I started to play around with changing the authorizations, changing the parameters, changing the URL and all. So that really gave me more insights on how that particular API works. So that was a bit about my scary first meetup. And after that meetup, I was sure that in the next meetup I won't get nervous enough like that. So the second pointer, some dates not look the same as we expect. So there was this second project. In that project, it was I was working in a servicing company, so you know that it triggers depends on the client. We used to change projects. So in the second project, that particular project was entirely for API testing, and there were no documentation at all for that APIs. Initially, it was told that there will be documentations which I could refer. So I was allocated to that project. When I started the project, there was no documentation at all, which was kind of shocking experience again for me. So it went against my expectations. So what I did was the same thing. I went again to the developer who was building that product. So we went together going through the code, understanding how he designed the APIs, And what we did was we started implementing documentation first before doing a specific testing for that, because I won't be the same tester throughout the project. There might be chances I will be changing in between. So in future, if someone joins also, documentation really helps. So that was a second initiative. We collaborated together and created a documentation. And then after that, it was easy for us to test the APIs after having a proper documentation. And then it comes the third one, abnormal dates and breakups. So abnormal dates, right? So there was a project in which we wanted to start API testing. Okay, so the expectation, I would say, the expectations from the client was actually set wrong. So they were outsourcing this project for another vendor, and after development, that vendor dropped the project. And for the testing, they gave the module entirely to us, and we were asked to do the testing, but there were nothing much as a documentation like the previous project. And the development side actually had some sort of test which is already there, but the client doesn't know about that. So they asked us to create tests from scratch. So we did all the tests from scratch, and everything was built from scratch. And after that, they onboarded another development firm. So when the new development firm came in and started working on the same code base, what they realized was there were already written tests for that specific APIs from the previous vendor. So they were asking us, why you guys are doing repetitive work? So if you just went through the application code once, you didn't want to do repetitive works. You could have removed that redundant sort of work which you were doing. So that gave us a new knowledge that even if we don't have we don't have a proper learning from in terms of development side, we should when we start testing APIs, it is better to have a interaction or understanding, overall understanding of the architecture of the product. And we should know how our project code works, whether there is a written unit test, there are written specs for that, written integration or service level test which is already written by the developer, and understand what is not there. And if we could understand what is not there, and then we can prioritize the test which we create. So that project actually gave an experience of some sort of reverse engineering to understand the API logics. So even though it was an abnormal date and I had a breakup in between on that project, it actually helped me to do a reverse engineering and understand the concept. And the last one, so with these three events, I realized the importance of having a collaboration with the developers, understanding the tech stack in a holistic view, and application architecture, and also importance of understanding the tests written by developers to avoid duplication. So now, when it comes to API testing, it makes it easy for me to evaluate on automating the right things at the right stages. So what really matters is to have a long-lasting relationship, we should have the building blocks set right. Otherwise, we will be building on top of that building blocks which is not stable enough, and sometimes it may break. Like same like in relationship, we have breakups. So let's date. So where I started, right? So I wanted to understand from the basics. So this was the first thing which I tried to understand. What is an API? So it is an acronym, as you already know. It stands for Application Programming Interface. So I just separated those into three different components. Okay. So first is application. When it comes to application, so API is something which interacts with different set of applications, so with different applications. Okay. And when it comes to programming, so we can say API is something programmatically interact with different applications of different piece of codes. And when it comes to interface, so interface is used to interact with other pieces of code, and it follows the principle of abstraction. Okay, so what abstraction means? let's take an example of post feature in LinkedIn. So we all know that how to how to do a post in LinkedIn, right? But we don't know the underlying mechanism. So we just type something, maybe we add a link, or maybe we upload some image and we just click on post. So what happens behind that? So actually, we may be using, I am also not sure about the LinkedIn technical side, but from my understanding, LinkedIn will be having a post API call, right? So when we create a post, what happens is when we click on the post, we are actually consuming LinkedIn's post API, which will post it to the LinkedIn server, and we will be able to see that. So, but even though it is happening and we can see the pose, we are not seeing the underlying mechanism. So it is abstracted from the end user. So API acts as an interface, abstracting the underlying logic. So let's see the types of APIs. So basically, two types of or two API methods are REST and SOAP. There are GraphQL APIs. There was session before, you guys might have listened to that. So I'm just highlighting REST and SOAP here. So REST is representational state transfer, which follows a set of guidelines, and it is a collection of architectural principles rather than a protocol like other web services. And POST, it is simple object access protocol. It uses XML as a format to transfer data, and also it uses WSDL language. Main function is to define the structure of messages and the methods of communication. So with an example, we can see what an API does. So imagine a situation of ordering a dish from a restaurant. Okay. So we assume that we customer is the application or the client in a restaurant and checks for the menu for a desired dish. So what we do next is we call the waiter, right? So the waiter is the API and we request that specific dish which we want. And then the waiter goes and check for the availability of the particular dish in kitchen, which is our server. And we'll get an update from the kitchen informing whether the dish is available or not. So after getting the response from the kitchen, what waiter does is he comes back to us and shares that this is the update. The dish is there, if the dish is there, he will be bringing the dish. If the dish is not there, he will be saying that dish is not available. So we will get a response from the waiter. Technically, API is a set of rules that allows programs to talk each other. The developers create the API on the server and allows the client to talk to it. So now let's break it down into simple concepts. So now the important part of APIs is one of the important parts is request methods. So first is get. It is used to retrieve a data from the server at the specified resource. So for example, say that there is an API with /users endpoint. If we are trying to get details from that server, it will using that endpoint, it will be giving the list of all available users. So same thing, like if you want to know the number of participants in this event, we can use the Teams API if it is available, and it will list all the number of participants for that. And there is post, used to send data to the API server and create or update a resource. The data sent over the server is stored in the request body of the HTTP request. So when we are using a post request, there will be a body which has to be passed along with you, along with the request. So the next one is put. It is used to send the data to the API to create or update a resource. And there is only a minor difference between put and post. That is, if you are calling the same put request multiple times, it will always produce the same result. In contrast, calling a post request repeatedly have the side effects. It will create multiple the same resource multiple times. And the next one is delete. Delete is used to delete the resource from a specific URL. So let's see the interconnected usage with all these request methods. So if a new user is created using a post request to /users endpoint, it can be retrieved with a get request using /users/user ID endpoint. And if you want to update the user details which is already posted to the server, what you can do is a put request. We will be using a put request to update the details. And when it comes to the deletion part, we will make use of the delete request by specifying the user ID, which will completely remove that user from the server. So the next set is status code. I just combined all the numbers together and only I'm highlighting the important ones. So when it comes to the ones which is starting with 2 and 2xx will always represent success. Okay, so 200 OK means a request was sent successfully, and 201 created means something new was created based on the request. 204 no content means request sent successfully but no data is sent back. And the next one is 4xs series, which determines client error. So 400 bad request is server did not understand the request. 401 unauthorized means client must be authorized via login. 403 forbidden is client doesn't have permission to access requested document. So the same like put and post, there might be confusion for this 401 and 403. So 401 just related to login actions, authentication purposes, and 403 means if imagine your application got a user role and also an admin role, and if you are trying, if you log in as a user credential with a user credential and trying to access admin pages, it should show 403 forbidden. That's the simple scenario. And the last one is 404 not found. Requested document is not found in the URL given. And the next set is 5xs series server error, 500 internal server error. Yeah, as testers, we might have seen it several times. And once it is shown, we will stop testing, right? So same thing. So I'm not explaining it much because it is a server error. Generic error message, meaning that something is broken. And the last one is 3xs series, which determines redirects. So 301 is moved permanently. Requested document was moved and response contains the URL of the new location. And 302 found is requested document temporarily moved to a different location. So 301, if you open DevTools while trying to log in to an application which redirects you to some other pages after login, you may be able to see 301 in the network tab. So the next important aspect is authorization and authentication. Okay, so authentication is all about proving who you are, and authorization is all about proving what you can do. So yeah, this is a get method structure. So you can see the type of method first, and then there will be a protocol, then there will be API address, and then we have a versioning for the API, and after that we are specifying the resource which we need to be accessed. And you can see post, it is the same API set where we are trying to create employee details. So in post request, we pass some body parameters. And then there is a put. Once we post using the previous endpoint, what it gives is a user ID. And then we can use, if we want to update the employee details, we can use that user ID in this put method and try to update the entry. And delete method, same like what we seen before, we need to pass the user ID which is added to the server. If we specify that, it will be deleted from the server. So these are some API testing tips which actually helped me based on my experience. So understand API requirements very well, specify the API output status, organize all the endpoints, and then focus on small functional APIs first. So when you start, don't go for big or huge API testing scope related features. Start small, and then you slowly pick up to take over big things. So focus on small functional APIs, leverage automation capability, choose the right tool, define verification methods properly, create positive and negative tests. Also try to understand the schema or structure and data formats for the APIs. And if there are versions, make sure you understand the versioning for the APIs. Otherwise, you might be testing a wrong version of the API, and the another version will be released to public. And also ensure that you are taking care of the risk which can be anticipated while you are testing APIs. So now, let's go back to the topic of dating, right? So when it comes to dating, we always want to ensure security. Okay, so if it is not a secure relation, we won't uh, think about it in terms of longer running relationship, right? So same API testing, security is always important. So this top 10 list is actually picked from OWASP top 10 API list. It is a project which is exclusively made for API vulnerabilities. I will be providing the link later. You can go and check out to understand the concepts in detail. So we will be going one to one quickly to see what they are. So the first one is broken object level authorization. So here what the attackers
Nitin, you will
will
have to
do is
keep a time check.
substitute. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
you have
Thank you.
2 to 3 minutes to wind it up, probably.
Okay, perfect. So this object level authorization is there, where attackers try to change the IDs and try to uh, do some attack over our APIs. And the second one is broken authentication, which allows attackers to consume other users' identities. And the third one is excessive data exposure, where we will be sending more data which is not necessary through our APIs. So over exposure of data will be there in here. And the next one is lack of resources and rate limiting. So if you have seen some APIs, we will be limiting the content. So attackers will be trying to give over limit and try to access it, and it will cause denial of service errors. And broken functional level authorization is the API relies on client side security. So then the admin level things will be inappropriate. So mass assignment is there, where attackers try to assign mass data and change our data. Security misconfiguration is there. Injection of data is there, same like how we do injection security injection in websites. So same thing can be doable in APIs. So that is what also one thing attackers will try to do. Improper asset management is there, and insufficient logging and monitoring is there. Sorry, I had to quickly go through the slides. I will be sharing the link later, so you can go through the project and see more about it. So the last one is creating and maintaining automated API tests. So there is a detailed flowchart which is available in the URL provided. Just go through that and understand the process. And this is a working flowchart which I created from my experience. I hope it will really help. And in our internet connected world, API testing is critical and crucial. And this is just a foundation, and there is a lot to learn to ensure that you are having a long lasting relationship. With that said, thank you so much for listening to me. And I would like to thank Agile Testing Alliance and the entire team behind API Summit for bringing this amazing conference for the community.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nitin. It was a wonderful presentation. Especially, I like the slides. You put them really simple, straightforward to understand. Yeah. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, yeah. And then we do have one question for you where Praveen is asking you that what would be the reason to use manual documentation instead of live documentations like Swagger when it comes to
Mhm.
APIs?
Uh, so Swagger, right? In my current company, actually, we are using live documentation. It really helps. So whenever we create an API, it actually creates a documentation in Swagger also. So we as testers no need to go to developers again. It reduces the ping ponging. So we don't want to go there and ask them what does it mean, what are the things they specify. So we can just go through Swagger if it is live documentation. If it is not, we need to access through a documentation which is created.
Okay, so it's like a handy reference where you get to see all those API signatures, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then one more question from Harshavardhan, where he's asking you, how do you make the judgment call regarding the right tool to test the APIs?
Okay, so when it comes to picking the right tool, we need to evaluate the skill set of our existing team members and try to understand what is more flexible to them, and also try to have a chat with the developers to understand the tech stack which we have, and pick the right tool which actually help us in all of the use cases which we want to automate or use for testing. So maybe do a
Mhm.
POC of one or two, try with more number of use cases and see whether it's feasible or not.
Okay, so it's more of an experimentation kind of a thing where you need to evaluate few things and then based upon your suitability, you need to understand. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yes, correct, exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we got one nice feedback from Abhijit. He's saying that this session required some more time. Sorry for the glitches, Abhijit, which we faced. But then, yeah, altogether, it was a really wonderful session. We got to know about the basic insights about APIs and API testing. Yeah, and then this is the feedback URL which we have already shared for all of you to fill in your feedback. And then, yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to give a thanks to Nitin. Thanks for being with us today, and thanks for all that wonderful content which you shared with all of us. Thank you, Nitin.